Rationale in Action, your host, John Carter. Now, it's rare that I get really disgusted about something. It genuinely is. It's only when something truly abominable or malevolent comes to the surface. And a friend of mine just sent this to me. He said, "You might like to take a look at this." This guy was right. I mean, this is truly scary stuff. Hands down. I'll read it to you. This is California's new sex ed curriculum is about to roll out. What you need to know. Alright, for those of us that live in California and for the rest of the country, because I'm sure this wave will hit you if you do not prepare yourself and fight it. It's California's AB TAC 329. Now enshrined in law as Education Code, blah, 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 blah. I'll leave a site link at the bottom for anyone that wants to go through here. It's pretty graphic, it's nasty, but let's have as much fun as we can. I'm going to read a basic into this. I'm going to read a little bit of the basic into this, and then I'm going to try and go word for word as far as I can until I get disgusted. Alright, let's have at it. Quote, a friend of mine recently reached out to me about the California AB TAC 329 on sex health education. She heard about a growing sit-out movement to protest the bill, which was amended to force transgender and LGBT material into curriculum. Material that included education on lubricants, sex toys, and anal sex. Alright, this sounds really odd already. Wonderful. This bill passed. It's law, folks. Now, let's go down to what's in it. It's titled Sex Education. From the title, one can reasonably deduce it is meant to cover things like prepubescent changes in the body, biological functions of sex organs, and information about STIs, or sexually transmitted infections. However, health has become rather a subjective term according to this law that includes areas such as transgender issues, LGBT discussions, and sexual practices. None of these things need to be learned in middle school or high school. None of them. They hear enough about them through the media in general. These do not need to be taught in school. Pretty much it goes into what will be included. You can, I guess, scroll a little bit to the bottom. And, alright, some things it says, they're going to be taught about HIV, yada, yada. That sounds fairly reasonable. Condoms, prophylactics. Now then, let's look at the actual material that they'll be going over. Because everything can sound great and pure and whatever until you actually get to the nitty-gritty of what they're actually going to do. Now, I'm going to go word for word, a couple of these things. Motivation. Willingness to engage in sexual interactions. Sexual stimuli. In appropriate environment, safe, protective, and comfortable. Processing. Both physical and psychological. Awareness of physical sensations of arousal. Arousal of sexual desire. Sense of satisfaction, which may or may not include orgasm. Alright? Now, these are like the main points of what they're addressing. It's odd, folks. Now, safer sex messaging results in increased condom use and safer sex. I can agree to that, sure. A little bit of education can help decrease, the spread of STIs. Wonderful. Now look, the next line over. Lack of sexual enjoyment may indicate that a teen is not ready to be sexually active. Encourage teens to think about how comfortable they are with their current sexual behaviors. If a sexual function problem permits, you may need to evaluate whether a patient is experiencing sexual dysfunction. Okay? Sure. This sounds a little strange for something that an educator should be speaking to a student about. This is more something that, a parent or maybe the kid to a doctor, if there's really an issue at that stage in your life. Alright, next, tips. Improving female satisfaction. This is just the next line down. Encourage use of lubricants, as it improves the quality of sex. Refer her to over-the-counter water-based lubricants. Okay. Why? You're a young kid. You're at the prime of your life. There shouldn't be any problems at this point in time. And if there are, you're probably going to address a physician at any rate. Again, educators don't need to. Educate young women on their erogenous zones. Encourage female patients to explore their bodies and seek stimulation from erogenous zones, nipples, clitoris, vagina, arms, back, buttocks, ears, feet, fingers, legs, and neck. Suggest using adequate stimulation. Longer foreplay, oral, or manual stimulation of clitoris and other erogenous zones improves a woman's chances of orgasm and or satisfaction. Alright. Promote condom use. Alright, I can agree to that one. Cool. First one. Females report added clitoral stimulation when using female condom and increased relaxation when stress of potential STI or pregnancy is reduced. That would make sense. Cool. Yeah. And then this is the odd one. Recommend finding a safe, private environment and comfortable sexual position. Is it really prevalent that people are having sex in the street? I think that's kind of odd, no? I live in a fairly populated place, and it's a fairly liberal area, and I don't see a lot of people making out and fornicating in the streets. I don't know why they need to tell you not to do that. That's kind of self-explanatory. Now, next is going to be for the male. Postponing male ejaculation. Again, you're a young kid, you shouldn't have that problem. Reassure that this problem diminishes with time. Okay, sure, premature ejaculation is very common in adolescent boys, but decreases with age. Alright. Suggest using adequate stimulation. If male performs longer foreplay on partner, they are more likely to reach orgasm simultaneously during sex. Why do they need to know this? Why? This is something that, you figure out through life. This isn't something that an educator could probably do very well in general. Most of them wouldn't be very comfortable teaching this. Now, again, they promote condom use, find a safe, private location, and then something odd. Advise trying Kegel exercises. Not all young men know about their pubiococcygeus PC muscles and how exercising them can postpone ejaculation. Inform males about anatomy and advise that squeezing PC muscles for seconds at a time will help postpone ejaculation. This is not something that needs to be in there. It gets worse, folks. It gets much worse. Safer sex and lubrication. Lubrication promotes a safer sex experience by decreasing abrasive friction. Alright, that's kind of what lube is for. Sure. Abrasive friction, and then it goes into pretty much here. Abrasive friction, the result of dry penetration, can include a sex toy. Most 12-year-olds aren't really using sex toys, folks. I think it's kind of a rarity, at least in this country. I don't know about somewhere else. I don't know about in fantasies, but I've never known a 12-year-old to use a sex toy. Can cause condom breakage or vaginal and anal tears, increasing the chances of an STI. Abrasive friction also increases the risks for herpes outbreaks in those infected areas. Alright. Education decreases the risk of obtaining an STI. You know what to look for. You are calm with your partner. You don't have miscellaneous sex with with countless people. That's how you decrease STI transmission. You know each other for a little while. You like each other. You talk to each other about what you actually have wrong, and then you go from there. There's nothing wrong with that. And then it says, using lubrication enhances pleasure during sex, da-da-da-da-da. And then it goes into how to use lubricant. Alright. And then it goes into, you can be allergic to certain kinds of lubricant. It goes into the different types. Alright. Now, here's kind of the strange thing. It goes into what lubricants are right for what kind of sex. it goes into like silicone, lube is better for long term and can be expensive, and it's it can't be used on certain kinds of toys and so forth. It's good for, says, glass and latex and whatever else, water-based. Why do they need to know anything like this? And it goes into 53% of women and almost half of all men have used a vibrator. All right. So you're teaching a 12-year-old how to do this. Why? It's like, I understand children are growing up faster nowadays and that there's nothing you can really do about that to a certain point. Sure. But you shouldn't over-sexualize children at a young age. There's no reason for it. They're going to grow up into adults. They're going to eventually be upstanding citizens, and they don't need to be over-sexualized at a young age. This over-sexualizing someone, it leads to pregnancies. It leads to all kinds of miscellaneous sex, because as you're growing, you don't really understand yourself. During your teenage years, most people are confused. It's like, okay, you know kind of what you like, kind of what you want. You haven't developed any kind of, let's say, a fetish of any kind. Most people, like most of my friends that are homosexuals, they didn't really know they were homosexuals until they were in their 20s. They knew something was a little different. They knew X, Y, and Z, sure. But they didn't really know. It's like, hey, I'm having a little issue with my girlfriend, da-da-da. Okay, I'd be talking to them. All right, whatever, so forth and so forth. And nobody really thinks too much about it, and they slowly move on to it. Now, some of those people also, they thought they were strange, and they ended up being, heterosexual males. Okay? It's a very confusing time in life. You don't know where you're going. And I'm sure this is very similar to females. I just don't personally know any that I can, add to this segment. You need to let the kids grow up at their own pace. Teaching them all these these things outside of basic prevention, basic education about what herpes looks like, what you should do, how to do it, how to get testing, where to go, what's the right thing to do, and then the different options available to you, whether it's, the Depo-Vera shot or basic contraception via the birth control pill, condoms, the female condom. Why are they teaching people all about their erogenous zones? In here it says, where is it now? Here are some common sexual behaviors. Masturbation, touching yourself in a sexual way. Partners can masturbate together and watch each other. Come on, you're just trying here, folks. Finger sex, touching your partner's sex organs with your hands. Sex talk, talking dirty. Phone sex. Anal intercourse. A penis, finger, sex toy, or other object is put inside the anus. Vaginal intercourse, same thing. Oral sex, same thing. And it's like, they even break it down. Am I a virgin? Are you for real? This is just. It's really difficult, folks, for me to even go over this. This is appalling that anything like this would be brought into any form of education besides that of, you're just trying to break these kids. You're trying to create these sex-crazed children out there. Because until most people are 18, they're very much kids. You hit 18 and you're released kind of from the shackles of your parents. You go out there and it's like, wow, this is the real world. It sucks. And that's when you start to actually live. That's when your life really begins. When you're free to make your own decisions and suffer your own consequences, that is when your life actually starts. And they're trying to get these kids at such a young age. It's like, why? It makes no sense. They're breaking it down into like prostate stimulation for guys that can't get it up. If you're a teenager and you can't get it up, you have bigger issues than what's going on. That's going to be something mental. And this is statistics here. If you can't get it up, if you're a teenager, there's something. It's not physical. Let's just state that there's something else going on. There's so many things here that are just genuinely wrong with this, and it's almost like the STIs in here are an afterthought. Why are they an afterthought? It's like AIDS is being left out almost. It's just basically sex toy guidelines for safety and minimizing infection of viruses, bacteria, or yeast. Sex toys should be thoroughly cleaned and dried after each use. Okay. Yeah. And you shouldn't share needles when you're shooting up heroin. Cool. Now it's like condoms should not be used when sex toys are shared between partners. Used vaginally and anally. And the condoms should be changed when switching from anal to vaginal penetration. Made out of porous materials such as jelly rubber and soft skin. Okay. If reoccurring infections occur, ask about sex toy use and advise safer practices. Anal sex toys should always have a flared base to prevent it from getting stuck in the rectum. Look, my old man gave me the talk when I was about 12 years old. I understand some people don't get the talk because their parents are, I guess you could say, comfortable doing it, and they come into the world a little bit naive and so forth. But you don't need to know about anal sex toys when you're in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. You don't. If you're interested in that kind of thing, you're going to figure it out. If you're not, you don't need to worry about it. But you don't need to be shown all these kinds of, everything like this. You're trying to create a new wave of people that are going to follow in the footsteps of these perverts. There's nothing, and even if you ask like the BDSM or the hardcore kink community, they're like, no, we would never want to do that to children. This is something that some people find and they enjoy and they like and X, Y, and Z, but they would never want to over-sexualize a child because they, the general person doesn't want their kid to be over-sexualized. They want them to have the choice. If you're trying to program someone, this is pretty much the way to go. You're bombarding them with all these things. You can do this and 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 this, and it will all feel good. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here besides creating, again, these over-sexualized kids? It's dangerous. It's only going to get worse, and I really hope that these sit-downs or protests and everything up in Sacramento, they succeed. These politicians are getting way into being nice to these very select groups of, this includes all forms of, you can be any gender you have no gender. Our gender is a social construct. I mean, this is really bad, folks. This is really dangerous. As a kid, again, I reemphasize, you're very confused. You don't know what's going on for a lot of your time going through puberty. Your hormones are raging. You're growing up. You're getting bigger, taller, stronger, faster, whatever. And, you either think you're the greatest thing on earth or you think you're the worst thing on earth. And there's obviously there's people in between that, but that's kind of how things are. You don't know what's going on, and the people that do are these like godlike creatures. And these groups of these transgender individuals, most of them don't even want you to hypersexualize kids. There's only a very select few of these people on the fringe that do. You're going to learn about these things in the media. You're going to have the Zoes out there and the Bob Turrs. Bob Turr is Zoe. And they're going to, you're going to see them, you're going to wonder what it is, and you're going to figure it out on your own anyways. You don't need to be bombarded with it. And you definitely don't want someone that you kind of could respect, like your teacher telling you, you don't have a gender. My dad always told me I was a boy. my mom always told me I was her sunshine and her little son. Okay, it's, and then now the professor's telling, or excuse me, your teacher's telling you that you don't have a gender. Gender is a social construct. You can be anything you want. That's not something that you want to push. It's something that someone needs, that this person needs to figure out on their own. Because if you tell them that they can be anything they want, and they go through this, and maybe it's not right for them. Have people thought this? It might actually be bad for kids. I understand that you should be, cordial with people. You shouldn't be extremely rude to the transgender movement, to the LGBT community, and I don't think most people are. There's going to be fringe, let's say, those hateful idiots on both sides of the aisle. But if you have a bunch of people anywhere, you're always going to have a couple idiots. You can't change the entire system by force training people to believe that these people, where a lot of them have problems, that they're normal. They're not. If it's less than 1% of 1% of the population, it is not something that needs to be taught of as a normal thing in schools. These transgender rights and LGBT rights are being pushed way too hard for anybody's safety. I say this as a warning to the rest of the states. This is going to be pushed on you. In New York, in Florida, it's just beginning in California. It's going to spread across the nation if people don't get on this. It's only a matter of time if you let it. Watch your politicians. Make sure that they're doing what's best for you, your children, and their well-being. I know children are used far too often as pawns in political schemes, and do it for the children, do it for this, and I understand why. You put you put so much effort into raising your kids. They're probably the most important thing to you. If not your own life, it's them. So take a little interest in the policies that are creating these monsters. This is something I beseech you. I'm John Carter, and this has been Rationale in Action. Thank you and have a good night.